It's our weekly sports episode. Well, you might as well call it our infamous podcast about sports and stuff. Where on this podcast, you get to hear a little bit of information about what's going on in the sports world, what's going on in the video game world, a little bit of the technology information, get a little bit of a music knowledge chat, two of our personal faves that we do on the show, the artist spotlight, and of course the infamous ass of the week. So stick around. You might actually enjoy the episode. And then there were two. Well, in this case, it's one for the time being, and I'll let that be what it is for a brief bit. We're back doing yet another weekly episode for Pass. I did get a little bit of knowledge and a little bit of fun fact to be educated to myself in regards to the show, and realizing that all this time I've been calling it Pass Podcast, which is kind of a redundancy. Just like they refer to ATM machine, we know it's a machine that the M stands for machine, so it's kind of a redundant theory. So I will be implementing more towards just using the term pass, and you'll see that slowly push through on everything that I have going on. I'm still it's kind of almost a tough process because it's not like I can go out and just change Pass Podcast and that'd be the end of it. But I am going to work on renaming, coming up with a simpler name to kind of tool everything together. Because I'm not going to change all my social media to podcasts about sports and stuff. That's way too long. But I am going to work to make it a little bit more fluid, a little bit more simple, and just kind of make things a little easier. But what's going on, y'all? This is the Pass, back again. It's your host, BT, back going at it again, just doing what I do. Like I said, I've kind of been slowly letting down layers, so I guess I can go ahead and let that layer down because I know I've been indifferent about whether I wanted to mention who I was or what I'm about, but it's no need trying to hide or ignore or not acknowledge the obvious. So I just wanted to go ahead and just make this a chill podcast. It's going to be kind of to the point and direct about a lot of things that are going on. I do want to start off by mentioning that the podcast is being recorded thanks to the Blue Yeti microphone, which is through blue.com, a Blue microphone. So if you do research that, I usually make sure I put that link in the description. And also, if you are looking to start out with podcasting, Spreaker.com is the best place for me, where I started, just to kind of get your feet wet and learning or getting a feel for podcasting. A friend of mine, she was pretty excited, and I guess I'll go ahead and get this plugged early. She was excited. She got her her podcast first episode going, and then was able to get it to YouTube, and YouTube went ahead and gave approval on her show. So I know that's a good thing for her. So it's about it's entitled Misfit Moms, and she was able to get a page or a name that's more known and kind of a everyday name. So I want to get that in there and address that and discuss that before we go any further. So without further ado, we do have, like I said, it's a packed podcast, but it's not a packed podcast. And I say it like that because a lot of stories are going to kind of speak for themselves. But I do want to be sure that I leave no, I guess, page or table left unturned. So as of right now, if most of you have not been aware, we are currently in the finals of the NBA playoffs, and we are at the stage where you have the Golden State Warriors playing against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Game 1 was on Thursday, and from what I was able to look at, I'll be the first to admit, I looked at the first half of the game and kind of fell asleep on the second half of the game, but that's neither here nor there. But I did watch a good amount of the game and got some highlights and a better understanding of it after the fact. And there was kind of the main loophole or the main gap that I was able to observe is that the evident and the obvious portion of it was that Kevin Durant came to play. And it's going to be tough for LeBron. LeBron has a good supporting cast as far as Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love, but Kevin Durant playing like he did in Game 1, if that's the sign of what we're going to see in this upcoming series between these two teams, Golden State would have to do something really stupid to blow this series with them. It's not to say that Cleveland, I don't think, will put up a fight, but it was pretty much Golden State's game to win. And Cleveland was kind of just put in that place of just having to fight through the whole game. You knew it was a big game because the fact that you had a player like Klay Thompson not have his best game but still was able to help the team out in small ways. Draymond Green was a huge factor. Steph Curry was Steph Curry. Like I said, Durant had 38 points. The main thing they made clear was they literally, from what stories have stated or from what was mentioned about Game 1, it was about letting LeBron shoot the ball and challenging his confidence in shooting, because it's always been a conversation piece as far as him as a player and him as an athlete, is that he's one of the best basketball players in the NBA. They always, use reference the best basketball player in the world. But the reality of it is, if he can't hit shots, it's a tough series, or it becomes a tough matchup between teams between teams playing against Cleveland. Or Cleveland, when Cleveland meets other teams, if he's off, it gives the other team a more lenient leeway, because they're going to expect him, like, all right, trust your jump shot, like, trust the process. Speaking of trust the process, I guess I'll do this as kind of a filler because I don't have a tab for it, but I did watch it. I need to give myself a mental understanding or remembrance of what happened. Okay. So I always like, and I mention this all the time, and I will be sure to put the image in the photo when I do the closeout. But Game of Zones for Thursday was very intriguing as always. They did a reference where LeBron James was sitting at the front table with all the other teams who were participating in the Eastern Conference playoffs, and they kind of say, I appreciate you all being here, but it's like it was evident this is my time and it's my opportunity to shine. And they kind of went back and showed each team that he beat to get to the finals and how each of them would come into the finals matchup saying, we can beat you and we definitely have a better team to prove that we're the better, the top team in the NBA to come out of this conference. And it kind of stung and triggered from Isaiah Thomas was sitting, and he kind of thought to himself, well, yeah, we have a good chance of beating you guys and we should be able to beat you all. And at the time on paper, it was an evident, clear process, because, you had Isaiah Thomas as, Boston was the 1 seed. Isaiah Thomas was at full health. Their team was on full strength, especially coming off of the series against Washington. It was theirs to win, but obviously, as cards played out, it didn't turn out that way. And I think it got to when they showed the last team when they beat the Celtics, when their big three was starting to dissipate to get to the finals. Then it was kind of he kind of looked at it as, we're not meant to win, and it was just kind of a little segue of that. But Game 2 is going to be on tomorrow at 8. Game 3 is on Wednesday, if I can recall correctly. Game 4 will be Friday. And we'll kind of just stop there because you never can tell. Game 5, if necessary, is going to be on that following Monday. Yes. So I do feel as though this is a good series. I mean, it's Game 1. The hardest thing to come from Game 1 with Golden State was if Cleveland had won Game 1. I mean, the series is going to be a series regardless, but if Cleveland had won Game 1, you would have had a huge conversation piece just off of that one game alone. So I'm kind of going to switch gears in a weird sense, but it's for the better, or it kind of works into what we're doing or what we're talking about. Well, I'm not going to say what we're talking about, but this is, I guess you can call it I would define it as the one-off topic. But Tiger Woods was arrested on DUI charges and since has been released from custody. He did end up getting some paperwork, having everything resolved where he no longer has to worry with anything involving this. I'm sorry. That really just caught me off guard. Sorry. I thought I paused it, but anyway. Guess you learn minimizing doesn't always do the trick, and that's part of why I usually let that play through my headphones. But anyway, Tiger was arrested in Jupiter, Florida, and this happened last Monday. It was related to DUI charges. They did have his information, his profile put out there. Just kind of presented. They showed a mugshot of him. For whatever reason, the mugshot went viral and became like this huge uproar. So they posted that and kind of went, to the full extent of it. Tiger did release a statement which stated, I understand the severity of what I did and I take full responsibility for my actions. I want the public to know that alcohol was not involved. What happened was an unexpected reaction to prescribed medications. Didn't realize that the mix of medications had affected him so strongly. I did want to apologize to family, friends, and fans. And he's basically, in so many words, making himself accountable for what occurred. So Tiger Woods is 41. There was a plan or a thought at one time of him coming back to play. He's not really had the best of knees, over the past few years. But he is looking to attempt to play. So we'll see how that goes, or what occurs from that outcome of that result from that instance. Like I said, he has been released and everything. I mean, it's kind of going to come down to whether the story kind of circulates again. Maybe it'll likely be talked about once, the Pro Tour kind of kicks up again with golf. I do want to mention, and I did not have it shared, or I don't have it stated, but today is actually the day of the UEFA Championship. So I'd say I'd have a tablet sitting beside me with it playing, but I don't have a way of I have a way of being able to view it live, but I can't really watch it live while I'm podcasting the way I want to. But hopefully I'll likely give a victor for that in next week's podcast in regards to that storyline. To give a little bit of football news, Brandon Jacobs and Jim Harbaugh are, I guess you can call it, beefing. For those who may or may not know, to give a little bit of a backstory, Jim Harbaugh was the coach of the 49ers back when Kaepernick was playing. Brandon Jacobs was there at the time. Sorry. Brandon Jacobs actually played under Jim Harbaugh for a couple of years before he made his move to Michigan. And Brandon Jacobs has made it clear that he is not fond of him, and he's basically going to do everything in his power to expose him. So he did mention, but they're trying to make it clear as though it's kind of just not been a good camaraderie between the two of them. He posted a tweet stating, "Love the support, but stop the Super Bowl talk. I will expose him. Michigan will fire him when I'm done." So I guess it comes down to when Brandon Jacobs played for San Francisco, he didn't really get much playing time or much attention from playing in the offense that Jim Harbaugh had. So he did, it shows that, he confirmed he only played 2 games during the season, that the season that he played, and that was the same. Like I said, the same year they went to the Super Bowl. They had great assists. Jacobs then went on to say that they had great assistant coaches, but Jim didn't know what he was doing. He had no idea. He was throwing slants and covered 2 safeties. People getting people hurt. The guy knew nothing. And he is a 9-year, and Jacobs was in the league for 9 years. And then Jim Harbaugh did give a response, as with anyone on Twitter. People don't understand when you make a comment or when you generate an action, it's going to cause a reaction. And basically, Jim Harbaugh responded saying, biblical advice, let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you along with all malice. And then that's kind of what triggered or led into the infamous him taking down Brandon Jacobs taking down Jim Harbaugh. And the coincidental thing is, since he's been in Michigan, he's had a pretty successful career so far. And while he was with the 49ers, I mean, their record was 44-19-1. And during his tenure in Michigan, he has been 20-6. And it's kind of a likelihood that the Wolves, I mean, Michigan is not going to mess with him unless it's something crazy that occurs. So kind of segueing into baseball, and anyone who knows me knows I rarely, if hardly at all, do baseball stories. But I did have the opportunity or the chance to catch a little bit of this. The story kind of broke at a certain point, and by happened to kind of be on the news, I was like, all right, well, let me see what this is all about. Bryce Harper and Hunter Strickland were involved in a quote-unquote brawl during a game in San Francisco, where, and I guess this has trickled over for a couple of years, and because of that friction of that feud between them, at this particular point, Strickland did pitch at Bryce Harper in so many words, where he hit him. And the minute he hit him, it was pretty much, he just forgot all about everything that had happened and ran up to him, threw his helmet to the ground, attempted to try and fight him. He was initially given 4 games, and it was since reduced to 3. So that was a good story. I guess you can call it a feel-good story for him. And this was in the late 8th inning of the game. Of course, benches did clear. Strickland was given a 6-game ban, obviously because he was the player who threw the pitch. And then, as I stated earlier, this was all triggered, or it all kind of trickled down from a battle between them since 2004 when they were in the playoffs and they played against each other. Because Bryce Harper was known at that time for hitting home runs and kind of pacing his way towards his home run, excitement. I'm gonna be clear, and I'll say it because it's just me being me. I really didn't have many sports stories this week that kind of caught my attention. There will probably be more sports information. There will be another sports story addressed later on in the podcast, but that was the main one that I had, or that was brought to my attention in regards to what has been going on sports wise. So this is briefly, I guess you can call it the brief break from sports. I will, like I said, it's another story coming soon, but I do have another sports story non-related to physical sports, but to off-court. NBA 2K, anyone who knows the NBA 2K franchise, they normally do. A couple of weeks ago, we did announce or make the announcement or confirm that Shaq was going to be on the cover of the Legends version. So if you buy the one that has the more limited and get the apparel and the VC coins and things of that sort, you're buying the cover with Shaq's face on it when he dunked when he was in LA, the most known dunk that is his image for his Hall of Fame pose or statue. And they also had a shot of him when he was dunking when he was with Miami, because those were the 2 teams he won championships for. Still kind of found it odd, but it was kind of a thing that I didn't understand as to why they didn't have him with Orlando, since that was the team that picked him up. But that's neither here nor there. But Cleveland Cavaliers guard Kyrie Irving was announced as the cover athlete for NBA 2K18. They did make an official announcement for that, and it was confirmed, that they are excited to have him on the cover. 2K18 is set to be released in September, and it's the first player that will be, let's see, this marks the first time. Oh, well, I didn't know that either. So actually Kyrie Irving is the first player to wear a Cavs uniform and be on the cover of 2K18, which I think is a huge step. Because I was sitting thinking, I'm like, wait, LeBron was on the cover, and was like, oh, LeBron was with Miami at the time. So during his, I guess you can almost say during his career with Cleveland, he never made 2K's cover. And I mean, he's had a pretty solid career. I mean, he's a 4-time, Kyrie Irving is a 4-time All-Star. He has averaged 25 points per game during the regular season, 5.8 assists, and 3 rebounds. He's been a pretty valuable asset to Cleveland during the playoff run. Hopefully he can step up during the remainder of the playoffs, and we'll see how that all comes into play. So I'm going to do my minimal yet direct techie talk. Tech-wise, there were some stories that hit. Amazon Echo has announced it that they're going to be supporting iCloud calendars, or they're going to support iCloud in general. They've been kind of slow in doing this because they've been figuring out what would happen. But they did have it where you can add any appointments to your iCloud calendar, then they'll show up on any of your iOS devices as well as your Mac. You do, in order to do this, and this is an important portion, and I have this set up on mine. You'll have to turn on you'll have to switch on Apple's 2-factor authentication. Once you do that, you pretty much follow the prompts. If you have the Alexa app, and I'll tell you, this is the easiest way that I would tell anybody to do it. If you have an Alexa now and you have the Alexa app installed on your phone, which you have, I think you kind of need that in order to really use the device, and I'm gonna give a story about that in a second. Having the Alexa app, it kind of prompts you through everything on how to add the iCloud 2-factor authentication. It'll say you have to do the authentication before continuing with the setup of the iCloud connection. Because the iCloud is obviously going to use your iTunes login, and from there it just kind of streamlines you through. So the 2-factor, two things. So I guess I'll do this as a 2-part. The 2-factor authentication basically means that when you're logging into a device or you're logging in to access something that you normally wouldn't access, there's a 6-digit code that's sent to another device you have to verify that those devices can be used together and that there's no conflict in the device being set up. For instance, if you sign into, if I was to go on my computer right now and sign into iCloud from a browser, it's going to ask for that 2-factor authentication code, and they send the code to typically they'll send it to a desktop. If I'm on my computer, like if I'm on my laptop now, it would send a code here. Then it may send one to my phone, and you just would have to, whatever that code says, you'll hit allow first. Then the next screen, it prompts you for that 6-digit code. Some people may already know that, but a lot of techie folks who have the iPhone or the Apple Mac madness may have never thought of it. And the other story that I want to give is one day I was out and about, and I was supposed to be doing I was just out doing some things, and I was up earlier than I normally would be. And as I was out, my parents were, one of my parents I was with them, and my dad was home, and my Alexa was going off, and I usually have it or remember to turn the Alexa off if I know I'm off or I'm up to do whatever it is I need to do. But this particular day, it was just going off, and I'm like, oh, I didn't turn off the Alexa. So I wasn't home to know that it went off until my mom got a phone call, and I said my parents and then my other parent. But my mother I was with my mom, and my dad was at home. But my mom's got a call from my dad stating that the Alexa, that it was a speaker going off. He didn't know what it was. He didn't know what Alexa was. He has no idea what it is. So luckily, on my phone, I was able to manage it and go in and turn off the alarm. And I turned off the alarm and it turned off the speaker, which I think that's a good feature, because it's sometimes you may be somewhere and you might forget, oh, let me go ahead and turn this feature off and make sure that it's set up. There are talks that there's a possibility of a Siri-based smart speaker, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. they don't want, and this is something that I'm gonna be the tech guru or the gadget pro, and just kind of breaking it down. If your Apple devices, if you're expecting Apple and Alexa to play on the same playing field, good luck. Alexa is more of an Android-driven environment, and I don't have any problem. And believe it or not, as an iPhone user, I have no problem with that. Amazon has always been known to do their thing their way. Perfect example I always give is Amazon with eBay. eBay accepts PayPal, Amazon does not. I don't expect Amazon to ever accept PayPal because it would kind of almost break that trust that everyone is known for, where if they want to buy anything from Amazon, they usually use either a check or they use a debit card. But it's something that's possible. I mean, they're stating that it's something that may come down the pike. It's a possible idea. There's no certainty on that. But if you're an iPhone user, you have Apple devices that can work just fine with speakers and do similar tasks. It may not be able to buy anything from Amazon. I mean, you may not be able to buy anything from Amazon using your speaker that's not an Alexa, but I mean, you can use the Alexa itself and do those things, and it doesn't really make a difference or a conflict with the Apple world. And I guess, I don't know. And this is coming from someone who over 2 years ago was I won't say the anti-Apple, but I was the indifferent Apple user. Because I always picked with everyone about having Apple and, oh, you got Apple, but you got a Gmail. And here I am now. Gmail is always going to be my go-to. Most people know me as being guilty of using Chrome before I use Safari. It's just my personal preference. Excuse me. I have a strong feeling that could possibly change, and I kind of know why, but that's another world, another story. Yeah. So, and I'm gonna go ahead and talk about this going into the next story. Next week's podcast, I'm really hoping I can record it and get thoughts shared and addressed the way I want to. The reason why is because it's actually starting on Monday. There's an event for WWDC where you basically have all of your top Apple. It's going to be pretty much everything Apple, every knowledge bit about Apple coming down the pike as to what's coming, what to expect, what to look forward to. And I don't know about anybody else, but I'm kind of excited. But they've been quiet about, it's almost like the keynote's there, but they don't want to tell anything because they kind of got to let it be on a rumor-based piece, because you don't want to tell anybody about iPhone yet, and there's no official iPhone information being leaked. We will, to kind of gear away from to gear away from Amazon and to go into Apple's world, they are making a little bit of information and kind of giving a little bit of tidbits about the speaker. They're stating that Apple is releasing a speaker that's it's basically going to be a Siri-based speaker. They have yet to really give a date of when it's going to be released. They're stating that the price range will be anywhere from $50 to $180. It's a strong possibility it could be in that 180 range, because you do want to stay in competition with your competitors. They're saying the second half of this year, probably be a little before Christmas. But basically, it's going to be it's going to kind of be what Google Home has and what Alexa has for, like, Google Home works flawless with the Home app that they have out, and Alexa works flawless with maintaining and managing anything on Amazon, as well as any alarm information. The Siri speaker is going to likely be able to give you those minutia, random tidbits of information, just like anyone who has a Siri, who has an iPhone and any Apple devices know. You can just ask Siri just about anything, and it'll tell you whatever it is you want to know. So that's kind of what they're looking at with the Siri speaker. They don't want to give too much information, but it looks like there's a strong possibility that we'll hear about it at the WWDC event. And I know I keep saying that term, and I know a lot of you all are probably listening like, what is WWDC? So let me go ahead and make sure I give you the correct titling for it. It is called the Worldwide Developers Conference, and they have it. They have it every year. Dub. But they have it every year in California, and it's basically a way of showcasing any new software and technologies by software developers who are with Apple. So they all get like little sections and breakdowns of things they're going to talk about during that time period. I apologize because I know I was in expectation of thinking, I know my co-host said he maybe will make it. If he makes it, then what we'll do, and I'm going to go ahead and give y'all a heads up. I'm not going to pick with him too bad because he has been helping me out, and if he doesn't hear it enough from me, I always appreciate him for doing it. But I probably will revert back a little bit with sports, but not revert too heavily because I know a lot of you have already heard most of the main information, but he'll probably give more of an insight because if you all don't know, I'm usually the sports guy. I mean, I'm usually the stuff guy. He's the sports guy. So speaking of stuff, we do have our artist spotlight this week, and I was on the fence about who I would really do as an artist spotlight because I'm a fan of a lot of music, if anyone does or doesn't already know that. But for this week, I decided to kind of go I don't want to say the cheap route, but it just works out as far as her being known and her skill. 3-time, let me make sure I got that right. Yeah, 3-time Grammy Award winner Jill Scott is our Artist of the Week or Artist Spotlight. She was born in April of 1972 in Philly. Philly was kind of her connection because Philly, if it weren't for her being obviously in Philly, it wouldn't have established her connection with various artists, and I'll kind of go over that in a moment. She was known for, she was raised by her mom and grandmother. In 8th grade, she was inspired by Nikki Giovanni in poetry. She did later gain a knack for or a passion for music, singing, and then most of all, jazz and soul greats, and kind of getting a craft of her own established. She did attend Temple University, planning to become a teacher, but she did end up going into drama for an apprenticeship. She then got a part in the known show Rent, and she mainly left the show in '99, and they were on tour in Canada. She left the tour and found out that wasn't something she wanted to do, and she then took her talents and her skills into the singing flow. And a fun fact that I just learned from reading this article is that she actually wrote the song by The Roots, known that was one of their hit singles, You Got Me. Did earn a Grammy at the time. She worked with Jeff Towns, who had collaborated with Will Smith and DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, to create various music to create or generate her first album. First album in 2000. Where do I begin? Oh my gosh. All right. So music moment. Sorry. And I'm not going to have, like I said, he may come in and if he blends into this one, he'll just hear it and be what it is. But first album was Who is Jill Scott? Words and Sounds Volume 1. It was released in 2000. The songs on that album were everything. And it was kind of if you're a person who's had the confirmation of the idea of you don't like neo soul, but you like good music, this was where you got a pass, because Jill Scott she did songs A Long Walk, Getting in the Way. It was Watching Me. Like, that first album was my sanity haven on so many levels. And I'm saying it like that because it just was an album that I just always could get into. She had she had a few interludes: Honey Molasses, One Is the Magic Number, Brother. Like it was an album that I always will remember and always know to be close to me as far as a listening, like a growth of watching music go through its transformation. Album gained a lot of attention, through the media and through the masses. It became top 20 on Billboards. Like I said, it earned 3 Grammy nominations. Then in 2001, she released 826 Jill Scott 826 Plus, which was like a dual bass album. One was like it did concert recordings of somewhat like live performances, and then she included a lot of unreleased tracks on that album. Then in 2004, she brought out her next studio album, which was Beautifully Human Words and Sounds Volume 2. It did have the hit single Golden. That album, the album afterward was Real Thing, Words and Sounds Volume 3, which was in 2007. And that was at the time when her and her husband had divorced Lysel Williams. She was kind of known as the leader in the neo-soul and soulquarian movement. She pointed out that a lot of her work was kind of based through opera and swing to 70s R&B. She has a very playful vocal style that kind of blends in with live instrumentation. When it comes to, and I personally have never experienced this, but I've had people mention this to me, and I'm going to state this before I continue. Jill Scott has always been known, like a lot of artists do live shows or live performances, and you'll hear them say, "Oh, this person was a good artist. This person did a pretty good show. You got to check them out live." And you're like, okay, they were pretty good live. It was the same as the album, whatever. They said Jill Scott does a show when she goes live. Like, it's a whole nother element for her. And I personally and honestly can believe that. So, I'm sorry, I know that I gave that like random segue, but I always think about that anytime I listen to or acknowledge her music. But she did, like I stated, she earned 3 Grammy Awards. She earned 1 for the rendition of God Bless the Child that she did with George Benson and Al Jarreau, a couple of artists we've done before on Artist Spotlight. 6 Degrees of Separation, you saw that first. Now she did do a little bit of she did do a little bit of writing, and she did do some film work as well. She performed in Tyler Perry's Why Did I Get Married, and she was she worked with a pretty strong cast. And then she worked she was in the sequel of the album, sequel of the movie as well. Let's see. She released a book of poetry called The Moments, the Minutes, the Hours with St. Martin's Press. And then she also, and before she was in Why Did I Get Married, she was also in Blue Mama. She was in Hound Dog acting as Big Mama Thornton. And other characters were Dakota Fanning, who was showcased, and that was showcased in Cannes in 2007. Let's see. She'd worked on a series adaptation to the hit novel #1 Ladies Detective Agency, and she was then, at the time, she was with the record label or record company Hidden Beach. She released or left Hidden Beach and then went to Warner Brothers. And I noticed this is a trend. Before I continue, I want to say this. I always notice whenever artists are with one group or with one label, that label works for them for a while, and then eventually they leave that label and then they go into like the label they really want to be a part of. A label that is more for what their next level is or their next plateau of music. But she left Hidden Beach, signed to Warner Brothers, and she released The Light of the Sun. And one of the songs on there, which was her and Anthony Hamilton doing a song together, "So in Love with You, So in Love." Okay, I'm sorry. Let me come back. But yeah, they did an album. They did a song together. It had a song, also included the song "Woman Manifesto." I'm hoping I pronounced that right. and she performed that at the White House's Evening of Poetry. Then in 2012, she returned back to TV doing a Lifetime remake of the movie Steel Magnolias, which included Queen Latifah, Felicia Rashad, and Alfred Woodard, among others. For 2013, she did take on a role in Sight, and was planning to be featured in the film Baggage Claim, which was scheduled for the fall. So I give quite a lot of information. I give you a lot of information to share a lot of knowledge about Jill Scott, because she was the face. She became the face of neo soul without knowing it at the time, as to how it all came together. But she definitely made her mark and made her impact when it came to music. I feel bad because I'm already I'm trying to be paced. Anyone who knows me normally knows it's not that I'm a fast talker or I rush to get through what I'm doing, but most of the time the story just kind of comes, and I'm just usually all right, here's what we're gonna talk about, and this is what I'm gonna say. So I didn't really do many topics this week, not on purpose. Just it kind of was just the way it was. I'm trying to think before I give the ass of the week. Do I have any Ball updates? Only update I have with him is, I believe, Jerry Colangelo, who is with the 76ers, stated that they don't have an issue with. They feel as though what's going to hurt Lonzo Ball the most is those who are around him. And it was almost a subliminal way to me of saying that his father could affect him as a player. I'm unsure if we addressed this or if it was mentioned last week, but there was a bit of a news or a numbers breakdown that confirmed of Lonzo Ball missing out on over $10 million in shoe money because of his father and because of them creating their own shoe. And that was kind of it gives you that concern and that question of, if his dad wasn't as involved, would it be different? So I don't really know what to take from it, other than you kind of gotta just know you gotta know when it's about business and when it's about other things. And I guess for them it's just business, period. So I don't know. But to kind of segue from the Ball madness, and I'm not going to use this inappropriately, but since their mascot is a baseball head, Mr. Met. Mr. Met is this week's ass of the week for making an obscene gesture. They were playing in a game between the Mets were playing the Brewers, and video had circled showing Mr. Met walking down a tunnel at the ballpark, turning around and giving a middle finger to fans. There was no certainty or no breakdown as to what was said to him or what caused the gesture to be made. And I always love this, because this is where PR is always going to win. Instead of saying he put up the middle finger, it was he made an obscene gesture. But basically, the Mets did release a public, the PR, or a statement on behalf of the organization. We apologize for the inappropriate action of this employee. We do not condone this type of behavior. We are dealing with this matter internally. Mets officials stated that more than one person wears the Met costume, and the person who wore it will not work in the costume again. So he pretty much has unemployed himself that fast. It's an interesting thing because Mr. Met is a well-known icon when it comes to being a mascot. Which, side note, very intriguing fact, Mr. Matt has a Twitter page, and his Twitter page has 50,000 followers. So I need y'all to give me any of y'all that's following Mr. Matt, come follow Past Podcasts. I mean, come on, what's up? Like, how? But they are just, I think the team is more embarrassed about it than anything. It's a coincidence because they also did talk to someone who had previously worn the uniform and confirming and making it clear that when you're in that line of work, or when you're in that position of that sort, you have to know when to be, I don't want to say when to be you, but when to use your personal feelings and when to think things through based on the circumstance accordingly. And this is no exception to that. It almost goes back to the whole, and I feel like I've mentioned this before in the podcast, and if I have, I apologize. But this kind of just, I'm at the wrap up stage anyway. But it makes you remember or think about that time when you're going somewhere and you're representing yourself, or you're representing your friends and your family, and you want to be sure that you give the best representation possible. And it's not hard to do that, but it's hard when you do something or make a reaction not knowing what the circumstances are. I'll give a slight personal story, but I'm not going to give details because I'm not dumb enough to do that. I made mistakes in my past. Those mistakes caused me to learn from what I did wrong, and it caused me to learn now how to handle who and what I do in the eye, in the public eye. Because, like I said, I'm not giving the details of the story. Most who know me outside of podcasting understand the story, but those who don't, put it this way. When you do something wrong, it can be people who never talk to you or don't know who you are that suddenly come out of the woodworks and realize, oh, well, you were the person who did X, Y, and Z, and they don't look at it as, hey, a mistake could have been made, ignorance could have been applied, something could have happened. But because you're only going by what you think you know, it's just giving you the idea to kind of jump on it and say, well, I think what you did was messed up. You deserve to get X. You deserve to get this treatment for what may or may not be known as to how it occurred or got to that circumstance. So I'm saying that, and I'm giving that story to just confirm, as if you're concerned and intrigued by what others think of what you do or don't do, then don't do dumb things and not be exposed behind those mistakes or those decisions. Because with good actions come good consequences, and with bad actions come bad consequences. Plain and simple, point blank, no fidget, finagled way of saying it. And you have to be able to own up to that portion of it. So I'm going to wrap up the podcast here. I feel bad because it's 3 and I have no co-host, and I'm not going to, I don't want to prolong too heavy with any thoughts. But I do want to say this, and and I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on with me today with this whatever cold thing I got going on, but I do apologize to y'all for that. But I'm gonna kind of make this the post. This will be a new segment, and I'm probably not gonna do this every week. I'm doing this today because I'm by myself. I'm gonna call this the pass or the post pass, which means, of course, there's a pre-pass and then there's a post-pass. So at the beginning, there's everything I talk about, and then this is at the end. I know I didn't need to explain that to y'all, but I always like to be me and give a little long-winded spiel about something that's irrelevant. But here's today's post-pass. And this is not going to be tied into anything that I've already done, but it's just going to kind of emphasize something that I want to make clear. If you're doing something and you are passionate about it, or you have your sights, your dreams, your goals set on doing it, do it to the best of your ability and make it clear where you stand as to what you're doing. Also, before I continue with this is not any shade. This is not any like pointing out anybody. This ain't me throwing anybody under the bus. It's none of those things. All it is just a general thought or regular verbal breakdown. You have to know where you stand in your life as to what you're trying to get accomplished. And I'm gonna give the easiest example I give for myself, and I always think about this because I've looked at it, and like I said, this may blend into a podcast, and if it does, my bad. But over a couple of years ago, I was a blogger. I still am a blogger. I still write. I still sit and break down thoughts. I still put things on paper. But looking back at it and realizing or knowing if blogging would be something that I would be doing like I do this podcast, I really couldn't say it now. I love to, I'm emphasizing this. I am a writer to the core. I love to write. I love to sit down and break down things. I like to discuss topics with people. I like to discuss, it's the debating, the arguing, the talking it out. Like, look, we cool afterward. We can sit and have a conversation about it and everything's fine. I like those things. Not everybody gets that, or not everyone understands that. So I'm leaving you all with an understanding of, if it's something that you're really down for, put that effort into doing that. Don't spread yourself thin if you don't have to, because in doing so, it just makes the process that much more complex. And if anyone's noticed that, and I'll be the first to come clean, I do love blogging, and I still do blog. But if I truly had a choice between blogging and podcast, give me the microphone. Let's talk. Let's get it out. Because I can be more verbal in my breakdown. Whereas with the blog, I have to kind of break down thoughts. I got to make sure that it's all written the right way and it all comes together. Sometimes it'll come together. Other times it's all over the place. And that's just how it is. So that's what I'm going to leave with you all today. That's my final pass, post-pass, whatever term. I'm going to come up with a better way of coming up with that one. But thank you all for tuning in to this week's episode of The Pass. I will be working on some things and just getting things in a better direction. I hope you all have tuned in or stayed tuned in this long. Continue to follow me on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. PASS Podcast. I know it's redundant, but I did it that way online for a reason. But everything branding beyond that is going to be changed. And I've been thankful to a lot of my friends for their input and feedback and ways of me getting what I need to get done to get it to that level. So to all of you, y'all are the real MVP. I'm so emotional right now. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, y'all be good. Stay positive. Do something good. It's Saturday. If y'all not enjoying this weather outside, you tripping. Because I would love to go out and do something, but the way this podcast set up. No, in all fairness, I don't mind, because this is my passion. It's my baby. So y'all be good. Stay blessed. Be real. Be genuine to who you are. And on that note, take care. Did you make it to the end of the episode? If so, I do appreciate you listening and tuning in. These episodes get more and more valuable, and I do appreciate everyone taking time to sit down and listen to the episode. Whether you're actually listening to it once it's uploaded on Spreaker.com/Brate Podcast, or if you're downloading it and listening to it on your own convenience. If you want to check out any previous episodes, just check out that page. And if you'd like to inquire or provide any information or feedback or suggestions toward the podcast, please send those emails to passpodcastbt@gmail.com. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Enjoy your day. Have a good week and be positive.